When you break the observer cycle, your reality changes immediately. This isn't theory. It's the hidden law shaping every experience you've been living. Right now, your consciousness might be caught in patterns that feel endless. The same problems, the same struggles, the same conversations repeating like a movie you've already seen 100 times. And even though part of you has tried to move forward, another part feels like it's being pulled back into the same loop again and again. Have you ever felt it? That sense of déjà vu, as if you've lived this exact moment before. Or those days where time feels distorted, hours dragging on in emptiness, yet weeks disappearing without anything really changing. That's not coincidence. That's the observer cycle keeping you locked inside the same version of reality. And the fact that you're here, listening right now, proves something important. You didn't stumble on this by accident. Something deeper guided you here. Because your higher self knows it's time to stop replaying the old patterns and start stepping into the reality that's been waiting for you all along. What you're about to hear is not just information. It's an activation. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll understand how to break free from the cycle instantly. Not someday in the future, but the very moment you shift the way you observe yourself and your world. But before we go deeper, I need you to do two things. First, subscribe. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. Because once you step into this knowledge, you'll want to stay connected. Don't risk falling back asleep when you're this close to waking up. Second, type 111 in the comments. It's simple, but powerful. 111 means alignment. Your signal to the universe that you're ready to match who you truly are with the reality you're meant to live. This is your turning point. Let's begin. Have you ever felt like you're walking in circles through life? Like no matter how much you try to move forward, you always end up facing the same challenges, the same conversations, the same disappointments. That's not just your imagination. What you're experiencing is something scientists and mystics alike now recognize: the observer cycle. The observer cycle begins with a simple truth. Reality doesn't just exist out there, separate from you. Reality is shaped by the very act of you observing it. Quantum physics has proven this in countless experiments. Particles remain in a state of potential until they are observed. And the moment they are observed, they take on a form. That same principle is happening with your life every single day. But here's where it gets dangerous. When your attention, the light of your consciousness, keeps focusing on the same things over and over, your reality becomes stuck. Imagine your awareness as a record needle that drops onto the same groove again and again. The music plays, but it's always the same song. No matter how loudly you wish for something new, the needle doesn't move until you move it. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you said to yourself, "Why does this keep happening to me? Why do the same kinds of relationships repeat? Why do the same financial struggles keep resurfacing? Why does time seem to move forward, yet your circumstances feel frozen?" This isn't bad luck. This isn't because you're not working hard enough. This is because your observer cycle has been programmed to collapse the same possibilities over and over again. You see, the observer cycle is subtle. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It creeps in quietly through habits, thoughts, and emotions you've carried for years. The frustration of yesterday becomes the expectation of today. The disappointment of last year becomes the fear of this year. And so your consciousness, without realizing it, keeps scanning reality for proof that those same patterns are still true. And because consciousness creates, the proof always shows up. This is why your days can sometimes feel like déjà vu, as if you're reliving the same conversations, the same arguments, the same emotional loops. This is not coincidence. This is the observer cycle in action. Your awareness is collapsing the same wave of possibilities, and reality responds with the same result, over and over. But here's the shift that changes everything. The moment you See the loop, the moment you recognize that it's your attention, not fate, not luck, not external circumstances, that has been fueling it, you weaken its grip. Awareness of the trap is already the first step out of it, because you are not the record needle. You are not even the song. You are the one who decides where the needle goes and which song will play. That's the real power hidden inside the observer effect. It's not about changing the external reality first. It's about reclaiming your role as the one who chooses what to observe, what to energize, and what to allow into form. And here's the most empowering truth of all. The observer cycle doesn't have to take years to break. It doesn't require endless effort. The moment you shift the quality of your observation, not just what you look at, but how you look at it, reality begins to reorganize immediately. That's the gift of this understanding. So ask yourself now, with honesty and courage, where has my attention been looping? What grooves of thought and emotion have I been dropping into day after day? Because once you see them, you can step out of them. And the moment you step out, a new song begins to play. One that reflects the truth of who you really are, not the repetition of who you've been. To truly understand why breaking the observer cycle is so urgent, you need to grasp the hidden power of your own attention. This is not just a mental trick or some positive thinking cliché. Attention is a force. Attention is energy. And wherever you direct it, reality begins to bend, to collapse, to crystallize into form. Think about this carefully. Every single day you are choosing, mostly unconsciously, where to place your attention. And that choice is writing the script of your life. The people you keep meeting, the feelings that keep repeating, the struggles that seem to chase you, they are all sustained by the spotlight of your focus. Let's bring this down to real life. Imagine someone who constantly focuses on how lonely they feel. Every morning, they wake up scanning for evidence that no one cares. They interpret silence as rejection, distance as abandonment, and when someone finally reaches out, they dismiss it as too little, too late. Their attention is locked onto loneliness, and what happens? Reality mirrors it back with situations that confirm their belief. Now contrast that with someone who decides, deliberately, to give their attention to even the smallest signals of love and connection. They notice the cashier who smiles at them. They take joy in the friend who sends a quick message. They feel gratitude for the simple presence of others in the world. Their attention has shifted, and because of that shift, reality begins to reorganize. More connections appear. More love flows. Not because the universe suddenly decided to be generous, but because attention became aligned with love instead of lack. This applies to money as well. How many people live their entire lives scanning for what they cannot afford? What bills are due? What is missing in their bank accounts? That attention collapses reality into continuous scarcity. On the other hand, those who train themselves to notice opportunities, to recognize value, to focus on the resources already present, begin to attract more abundance. It is not magic, it is mechanics, and the same goes for health. Someone who constantly fixates on pain, symptoms, and fear will reinforce a reality where illness dominates. But someone who directs attention toward moments of strength, healing, or energy begins shifting their biology itself. Studies have proven that attention affects the body at the cellular level, influencing how genes express themselves and how the nervous system regulates health. Here's what this means for you. Your attention is not passive. It is not neutral. Every moment of your day, you are either reinforcing the old cycle or creating a new one. If you wake up and immediately check your phone for bad news, you are feeding your observer a loop of stress. If you fall asleep replaying regrets, you are sealing that frequency into your field for the next day. But if you begin, even in the smallest ways, to shift where your focus rests, you begin to send a new signal to the quantum field. And The field always responds to the signal with perfect accuracy. The question isn't, does attention create reality? Because science has already answered that. The real question is, what kind of reality are you willing to keep energizing? With your focus? This is the secret most people miss. Breaking the observer cycle isn't about fighting your thoughts. It's about learning to choose differently where you place your attention. It's about becoming aware of what you are unconsciously energizing, and then making the bold decision to feed a new pattern instead. Because once you change what you consistently observe, reality itself has no choice but to change with you. Now that you understand how attention is the very engine that fuels your reality, it's time to expose the trap that most people unknowingly fall into, the observer loop. This is where your consciousness gets stuck in a repeating cycle, collapsing the same version of reality over and over again, like a song stuck on repeat. Here's how it works. Your awareness observes a pattern, maybe lack of money, maybe rejection, maybe struggle, and that observation reinforces the pattern. The more you notice it, the more your attention energizes it, and the more energy it receives, the stronger it becomes in your field. By tomorrow, when you wake up, your mind naturally scans for it again, and so the cycle continues. This is why so many people feel like they're living the same life year after year. The same kinds of arguments, the same financial frustrations, the same emotional disappointments. From the outside, it looks like life is moving forward, but internally they are locked in place, orbiting around the same set of experiences. Have you ever felt like time itself is distorted? Days feel long, dragging on endlessly, while entire months seem to vanish without you having made real progress? That's the observer loop in action. Your consciousness is stuck recycling probability waves, giving you the illusion of change while anchoring you in sameness. Here's the cruel trick. Most people blame themselves. They think they're not working hard enough, not spiritual enough, not disciplined enough. But the truth is, it's not about effort, it's about coherence. If your observer function is trapped in a loop, no amount of positive thinking, affirmations, or sheer willpower can break it. Because effort alone keeps you locked into the same structure of observation. The loop doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares about what you are consistently energizing with your focus, and most people unconsciously energize fear, doubt, or lack, not because they want to, but because their attention has been programmed that way. This is why you keep seeing glitches in your life. The same arguments repeating, the same feelings of déjà vu, the same setbacks arriving at the worst possible times. They are signals, not accidents. They are your higher self showing you the cycle in motion, begging you to recognize the loop and step out of it. And here's the empowering truth. The very moment you recognize that you are caught in an observer loop, the cycle begins to weaken. Awareness alone starts to destabilize the structure. Recognition is the first crack in the wall. The fact that you are here, reading these words right now, is evidence that your loop is already breaking. The synchronicities that led you to this message are proof that your higher self has orchestrated this exact moment of realization. But recognition is only the beginning. To fully break free, you must learn how to redirect the quality of your observation, to shift your focus in a way that creates new coherence, new timelines, new experiences. Because the observer loop is powerful, yes, but it is not unbreakable. And once you step out of it, your reality can change faster than you ever imagined. One of the most important steps in breaking the observer cycle is learning to recognize it in your own life. The truth is, most people are unaware that they are living inside repetitive patterns, circling through the same experiences again and again without even realizing it. On the surface, things may appear to change. New faces, new jobs, new places. Yet deep within, the story remains the same. The characters change, but the script does not, and you can feel it. It's that strange heaviness in your chest when you notice you're walking through conversations you have had before, dealing with disappointments that echo past failures, or finding yourself caught in the same frustrations no matter how much effort you pour into changing them. Think about those moments when you pause in the middle of your day and feel a wave of déjà vu wash over you, so strong it almost stops you in your tracks. Most people dismiss this as coincidence, but you know better. That eerie sense of repetition is not random. It is a signal from your higher self, showing you that your awareness is caught in the loop, collapsing the same possibilities over and over. It is reality's way of whispering, "Wake up." You've seen this before because you're meant to choose differently this time. Even time itself begins to behave strangely when you are trapped in the observer cycle. Hours stretch endlessly in the dull moments, making life feel heavy and slow, while entire weeks vanish before your eyes, leaving you wondering where the days have gone. This distortion is not a trick of the clock. It is a symptom of circling in place, a sign that your consciousness has been recycling the same probabilities instead of stepping into new ones. Life begins to feel like running on a treadmill, exhausting effort with no true forward movement, and it doesn't stop at the mind. The body itself carries the evidence. Patterns of stress, anxiety, or fatigue return even when nothing in the present moment should be causing them. That tightness in your chest, the restlessness in your sleep, the tension you cannot seem to shake. These are the physiological imprints of the loop, your nervous system replaying the same emotional soundtrack it has memorized from the past. The body, after all, never lies. It faithfully reflects the state of your consciousness, and when your consciousness is caught in repetition, your body responds in kind. But perhaps the most undeniable sign is the quiet voice that keeps whispering inside you. There must be more than this. You have felt it, haven't you? That subtle dissatisfaction, that knowing deep in your bones that life is not supposed to be a constant replay of the same struggles, the same fears, the same limitations. That voice is not complaining. It is calling. It is your higher self, trying to guide you out of the loop, reminding you that you are not here to endlessly repeat but to expand, to break through, and to evolve. The important thing to understand is that the loop is not here to punish you. It is here to teach you. Every repeated experience, every déjà vu moment, every distorted fragment of time is not a sign of failure, but a message. It is life holding up a mirror and asking, do you want to keep watching the same story unfold? Or are you ready to create a new one? And the moment you begin to recognize these signs for what they are, the loop itself begins to lose its power. Awareness is the first crack in the cycle. Once you see the pattern, you can never be completely blind to it again. That recognition is the beginning of freedom. The moment when the cycle starts to unravel and the doorway to a new reality begins to open. Awareness is the seed of liberation. And the moment you realize you've been living inside the observer cycle, the walls that once seemed unshakable begin to tremble. Up until now, your consciousness has been moving in circles, collapsing the same possibilities, repeating the same storylines, and drawing the same outcomes. But recognition, that simple inner spark that says, wait, I've been here before, changes everything. Because once you see the loop, it cannot remain the same. The loop survives only in unconsciousness. The instant you shine awareness, on it, the illusion begins to dissolve. Think of someone walking through a dense fog. At first, everything looks the same, tree after tree, path after path, until they believe they are lost forever. But then, suddenly, the fog parts for just a moment and they see a landmark in the distance. That single glimpse of clarity doesn't clear the fog entirely, but it shifts the entire journey, because now they know there is a way through. Awareness works exactly like that. You may not break free of every pattern overnight, but the moment you recognize that you are not bound by them, you've already begun to escape. This is why awareness is not passive. It is not merely noticing, it is active transformation. Scientists call it the observer effect, but what they often don't emphasize is how the quality of your observation changes reality. When you unconsciously observe, you collapse the same waveforms, reinforcing the same timeline. But when you observe with presence, curiosity, and choice, you open the door for entirely new outcomes. The same relationship that once felt heavy suddenly reveals an opportunity for healing. The same financial pattern that once seemed like destiny reveals a hidden path to abundance. The same personal struggle that haunted you for years reveals itself as preparation for growth. This is the turning point. You are no longer the prisoner of repetition. You are the witness, the chooser, the one who decides where your attention goes and what it strengthens. And attention is power. Every time you shift it, even slightly, you change the architecture of your reality. But here is the beautiful paradox. You don't have to force this transformation. You don't have to fight the loop, because resistance only keeps you entangled with it. Instead, you step back, you breathe, you see it for what it is, a pattern, not a prison. And in that seeing, the loop begins to lose its grip. You realize that déjà vu moments are not punishments, but invitations. They are your higher self whispering, here is where the pattern lives. Look closely, choose differently, think of it like a butterfly in the chrysalis. To the outside world, it looks trapped, confined, even suffocated. But within, every cell is rearranging itself into something entirely new. That's what happens when you become aware of your observer cycle. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even painful, to admit how many years you've been repeating the same reality. But in truth, that discomfort is the very process of transformation. It means your wings are forming. It means freedom is near. And once this awareness is born, you can never fully go back to sleep. You may stumble, you may feel the old pull of familiar thoughts or habits, but deep down you will always know, I am not trapped. I am the observer who can choose again. That knowing alone is enough to bend timelines, to shift probabilities, and to begin aligning your life with something entirely new. Freedom begins the moment you realize that your consciousness doesn't have to keep collapsing the same version of reality over and over again. The observer cycle is not a curse. It is a habit of perception, a rhythm your awareness has grown, used to playing. And like any habit, it can be shifted, reprogrammed, and replaced with something far more liberating. Most people live unconsciously, waking up each morning and stepping into the same set of assumptions. They expect their relationships to feel the same, their finances to remain limited, their health to mirror yesterday's struggles. And because they expect it, they observe it. Because they observe it, they feed it. And because they feed it, it grows stronger, repeating like a looped track on an endless playlist. The universe doesn't trap them. Their own attention does. But here is the liberating truth. The observer cycle begins to dissolve the instant you choose to look differently. This does not mean denying pain, ignoring difficulty, or plastering fake positivity over real challenges. It means reclaiming your role as the chooser of perspective. Every moment you notice yourself reacting automatically to the same story, the same fear, the same doubt, you have the opportunity to pause and shift. That pause is the crack in the loop. That moment of awareness is the key that opens the door. Think of it like tuning an old radio. If you keep the dial fixed on the same frequency, you will hear the same static-filled station every single day. But the universe isn't broadcasting only one station. Infinite signals are streaming through the air right now. Music of joy, voices of possibility, harmonies of love and abundance. All it takes is the smallest twist of the dial, a shift in your focus, and suddenly the entire soundscape changes. You didn't create the music. It was always there. You simply tuned into it. This is exactly how shifting observation works. The frequency of scarcity, fear, and struggle is always available, and so is the frequency of expansion, flow, and prosperity. Which one you experience depends on where your consciousness lingers. If your attention remains locked on old wounds, the past keeps repeating. But when you gently guide your awareness toward the possibility of healing, toward even the smallest sign of progress, you begin feeding energy into a different timeline. And because the quantum field responds to coherence, the new signal strengthens and stabilizes until it becomes your dominant reality. One of the most profound tools for breaking the observer cycle is the practice of stillness. When you allow yourself to sit quietly, without rushing to fix, control, or label what arises, you begin to notice something extraordinary. You are not your thoughts. You are not your fears. You are not your history. You are the observer. And as the observer, you are free to direct your gaze. Even the act of witnessing your own mind without judgment begins to weaken the automatic pull of old patterns. It's like stepping off the spinning carousel and realizing you were never strapped to it. You were simply holding on. Every time you redirect your focus, you send a new instruction into the quantum field. At first, the shift may feel subtle, even invisible, but the field is listening. Soon you begin to notice synchronicities, a conversation that opens a door, a sudden opportunity that appears, a small breakthrough that cascades into larger change. These are not accidents. They are confirmations that your attention has shifted, that the loop is weakening, that the field is reorganizing itself to match your new observation. Breaking free does not require struggle. It does not demand years of effort. It requires presence. It requires the courage to look at your life with fresh eyes and choose to see beyond the repetition. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, what once felt impossible, the idea of truly escaping old cycles, begins to feel inevitable. Because once the observation changes, the entire reality must follow. Breaking free from the observer cycle is not simply an intellectual shift. It is a rebirth. It is the moment when you stop being the prisoner of repetition and become the conscious architect of your own destiny. To live beyond the observer cycle is to recognize that the power to shape reality has always been inside of you, waiting for the moment when you would no longer settle for the old patterns. Think of how life felt before this realization: heavy, predictable, cyclical. The same relationships repeating their dramas, the same struggles resurfacing no matter how much effort you applied, the same emotional echoes keeping you bound to frustration. It was as if you were walking in circles inside a maze that had no exit. But now you see it. The maze was never solid. It was made of attention, sustained only by the way your awareness kept collapsing the same possibilities over and over again. When the cycle breaks, you experience a freedom that is almost indescribable. Suddenly, you no longer feel like time is dragging you along against your will. You sense that time bends, expands, and contracts around your state of being. You begin to witness synchronicities arriving with stunning precision, as if the universe itself is responding to your every shift in consciousness. And the truth is, it is. Living beyond the observer cycle does not mean challenges disappear. The difference is that challenges no longer define you. They no longer trap you in the same feedback loops. Instead, you see them as mirrors, as opportunities to choose differently, as invitations to affirm your new vibration. Where you once would have collapsed into fear, now you stand tall in awareness. Where you once would have replayed the past, now you step into an uncharted possibility. This is where life transforms into flow. You stop pushing, forcing, striving. You begin to feel the rhythm of reality, a rhythm that was always there, but hidden beneath the noise of repetition. It is like learning to dance with existence rather than fighting against it. In this dance, your role is not to control every step, but to listen, to attune, to move with coherence. And when you do, you discover that the field responds with grace, aligning people, circumstances, and opportunities in ways that feel almost miraculous. Perhaps the most beautiful part of living beyond the cycle is the return of innocence. That childlike wonder that sees the world as alive, fresh, and filled with possibility. Suddenly, the small details of life carry meaning. A conversation becomes a sign. A song feels like a message. A passing moment on the street awakens profound recognition. Nothing is random anymore, because everything is part of the living field, reflecting your consciousness back to you. And as this recognition deepens, a peace arises. You no longer fear the unknown because you know the unknown is where creation happens. You no longer cling to the familiar because you understand that the familiar was only a cage. You no longer doubt your worthiness because you see that the universe mirrors not what you deserve, but what you embody. To live beyond the observer cycle is to embody coherence. It is to walk through life not as a victim of repeating timelines, but as a conscious presence radiating harmony. Your frequency becomes your anchor, your compass, your source of stability. And in that stability, reality bends in your favor. This is not fantasy. This is not wishful thinking. This is the natural law of consciousness in motion. The loop dissolves the moment you stop feeding it, and a new path opens the instant you align your observation with freedom instead of fear. And from that moment forward, every step you take becomes an act of creation, every breath a declaration of possibility, every choice a portal into the infinite. That is the power of living beyond the observer cycle. It is the return to your original state, free, expansive, creative, infinite.